way through the challenge is to get still and ask yourself, what is the next right move?
Welcome to the Unconventional Founder Podcast, where we uncover the mindsets, practices, and strategies used by successful non-technical founders. Our mission for this podcast is to empower you with the information you need to help you get as far as you can. That said, let's get into it.
JW, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Hey Dave, nice to meet you. Thank you for the invite.
JW, you've had an amazing career that's spanned, I don't want to give away your age, but 15 plus years. Grew up in Melbourne. You're currently living in the Bay Area. You've worked in Silicon Valley. You've worked in China. You've done some amazing stuff. You worked with Uber in operations in the Nordics and led that. You've worked on a bunch of stuff, super innovative stuff. And I want to hear about, before we get into all that, where did you start? And can you tell me about an experience about where you started and how you started your career?
Where did I start? God, it depends how you define a career, but let's talk about it from okay. The first thing I did a few things, and I learned about things that I got paid for. Right? Let's call that professional, and maybe where I learned about accountability. God, I'll tell you this one. I used to work for let's say it was a Japanese takeaway restaurant type store. And that's not anything unique, although this place was super, super popular because the owner set a 24-second service level to when you order to when you get it. And it's fast food, but it wasn't. Like, you'd cook everything fresh and so forth. And I'm pretty sure I got paid very little for that. But I learned the idea of absolutely making sure you get that hot bowl of like miso soup or teriyaki chicken or whatever that was within those 24 seconds. And we had it was like 80% of orders had to be within that 24 seconds, or hell would break loose, or we got our pay docked, which probably wasn't legal at the time. But that taught me a ton of things. Man, I've done everything. I've had to go door knocking was probably my very first time job on that. And that was really tough because they'll deploy you out in really, really rural Australia, and they'll make you, and my whole job is and it will always be during dinner time. So you're really just pissing a bunch of folks off. And you have to go convince them that, hey, the telco that you're with for X amount of years, forget that. I've got a new offer for you. And doing all that sort of stuff kind of makes you just realize, like, there's a lot of opportunity in this world, but you got to really kind of work hard for some of this stuff. I mean, I think I kind of did it really tough for a while there. But accountability, honestly, if I could say one thing I've learned, it's accountability. And I don't know if you meant that far back in my career, but I'll tell you, I mean, that's how things started anyway.
That's awesome. And you've had a diverse range of experiences. So you were a founder and CEO of a company called Visor, and you worked at Ford Greenfield Labs as well. Can you tell me a bit about how do you set a compelling vision? I think this is one thing that you're really good at. You're really good at setting a really big vision and also selling that vision on a one-to-one personal level, bringing people on the ride, and then also bringing others like investors. And how do you go about that? I know it might come maybe naturally to you, but are there any frameworks or ways that you think about building that vision and kind of reinforcing that vision?
Oh, I could go. First of all, thank you. I appreciate that. I know we've known each other for a while, Dave, so I appreciate that you've recognized that. What would I say to that? I think, so a bit about myself. So in university, I went to Melbourne Uni. I did a double degree in actuarial studies and cinema studies. And it's really funny. I got a lot of reactions were like, that's a weird combination. What the hell is that? Well, but I think it's really served me well in my career, especially when it comes to like formulating a big vision. Because I honestly, every time I need to set a vision, and it could be at startups or conglomerates or enterprises or whatever, it's always this idea of like, it's like formulating a movie. So it's got to be interesting enough that you want to watch it and talk about it, right? And like any sort of good movie plot, it has to like change the hero in some way from from when the movie started to when it ended. So when you write out a vision, like, it's like a plot to a movie, and you got to put yourself as the hero. I mean, so now I'm sharing literally. This is my sort of way of thinking, but and the hero starts at this very moment and needs to get to this whatever place in the future. And then when you look at that, you go, does that plot interest you? Does it have the purpose and the values that resonate with you, and first and foremost? Because if it doesn't, rewrite the script. There is no point. If you are setting a movie that you don't even want to watch, forget it. All right. And then when you envision how this movie plays out as you as a hero, I think if it excites you and inspires you, go tell others about it. I mean, you probably seen me enough that I can't contain it. Like, I got to go tell people about this movie. And when you have that clarity that this is what you want to, this is the movie you want to write, it doesn't really matter what the plot looks like. Like, it could be super complex, right? It could be like a David Lynch or freaking Christopher Nolan movie. But if you see the plot with you as the hero and that makes sense to you and something you desperately want to watch, like, you're not going to have any issues with like clarity, conviction, and whatever it takes to go move mountains to make it happen. And whether that's your team or your company. I mean, I don't know if that's a weird way to kind of say it, but like, that's really been my mantra. Maybe that's because I had that weird actual study, cinema study sort of play, but everything to me is like a plot in a movie.
I love that kind of, yeah, that's such a good way to think. I think it's because it's very common that startup founders they don't think big enough. And it's easy to not think big enough because you haven't had the experiences, or maybe you haven't been around mentors that have created amazing things and pushed the bar. So I think that's a really good hack to trick yourself into thinking big.
You know, that's a process of thinking about how you want to, what you want to achieve. You know, interesting, when you say big, I think when you say big, like a big vision, for me, vision is inspiration, right? Like, I talk about the movie, what drives you and what inspires you, and your team and your company and so forth. And, you know, in inspiration, if you talk, I just realized there's this quote that I love, right? How you set a really big vision is how you drive inspiration. And it's this idea of everything you've ever wanted is on the other side of fear. Or basically, if the universe granted you a future that is guaranteed to happen, what would that look like, right? That's your big vision. And when you have that clarity, it's great, but it's really difficult because fear can manifest itself in so many freaking ways. That's like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say freaking, but you know, it's easy to say like, you know, I'm going to settle for something that's less risky, or maybe this is more appropriate. It's just easier, or that maybe I should be satisfied with something more like this. And when you lose that fear and that guilt about what you really want to go after, you get that clarity. So, because once you have clarity, it's much easier to share that vision with others. And it doesn't matter how big it is, right? When you don't have that fear. If you compromise on that, people will sense it. People just sense that you kind of go, is that really what you want? Is that? And then it's really hard to get people convicted into your sort of vision when you compromise yourself. I don't know if that kind of makes sense, but I love that saying. Like, you should think of a vision as an inspiration, and you should think of this idea of fear and your dreams being like neighbors. How you kind of contain that they're like right there with each other. Anyway, it's kind of how I see this.
I love that. I think that nobody's going to buy off you, most importantly, and then no one's going to give you money if you don't truly believe your vision.
Yeah.
Like, nobody, they will see straight through it.
Exactly. Yeah, you can't hide that, right? It's authenticity. It's the what you say. It's what you do. It's what you say you do. Like, it's all these different things that you can't fake it. So you might as well just be really honest with yourself and really just go after what you truly want.
Love it. And with previous startups, how much money have you raised? If you're open to sharing that, you don't have to share that if you don't want to.
I'm not sure if I meant to share that, but it is.
Yeah, don't share it. I'll cut
that out. Really a lot. I'll cut that out. A lot.
And what are your? So you've been a part of taking a startup outside of a large organization, and creating its own company. And so, what are kind of some of the key learnings that you've had from that maybe you would share for other large organizations who are trying to innovate? What are the pros and cons, and what does that environment need to look like to be successsul?
Having done this a few times, it's really clear to me that, you know what's the difference between a startup and like a corporation? Like, I don't know if this is the exact definition, but, you know, a corporation or an enterprise, it's all about delivery. You are there, like everything is in place from the platform, the people, the process. It's there for you to deliver something. It's a proven business model you're delivering. And that is totally different to the idea of discovery, which is what a startup is. What it's built to discover. Go find that product market fit. Go find your initial customers, right? Discover. Those two things almost never can coexist, ever, almost. Like it's a weird thing to say, but when a company is successful, it's built with its platforms, processes, and people around this idea of delivery. And so if you try to start an innovation team or venture labs or whatnot, I mean, I oversaw this space for one of the biggest companies in the world. I spent a lot of time in these communities with these venture studios, venture labs, and all that. And it's not that it can't work; it is super difficult to even try because you're still part of the machine, and it is no one's fault. But there is checks and balances say that you have to get 12 signatures to put a Facebook ad out or something like that because they've got a brand to protect. So even if you call yourself the innovation arm of this, you're still representing the delivery machine. And all I can say is like spinning things out has been the only way I've seen success on this. And I'm sure it's not the only way, but in my personal experience, that is what I'd highly recommend. And what's amazing is that in today's world, spinning something out, like really, really creating a bit of like a distance or a wall between something is easier than ever, right? It probably was super difficult back in the day, but now anyone can do that within a few days, few hours, if you really know where to go and what you're doing. Biggest thing I've learned. And from that, you need to just recognize this difference between delivery and discovery. And I think people tend to think that is not as distinct and discrete as it is, but that's not true.
Love that, mate. That's thanks for sharing that. How do you think about product delivery or innovation now that you're running a brand new startup?
Yes.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about that and what your compelling vision is for that before we get into the question?
Ooh. Yeah.
Sorry
sure.
to put you on the spot if you're open to sharing it, but if you don't,
No, of course. It's not a secret. In fact, yeah, definitely not a secret. So the company is called EV Pro. And the idea is that it's trying to help EV adoption for pros. And by pros, I'm referring to smaller businesses, right? But it could be plumbers, electricians, whatever. It's just a smaller business that's using a fleet of some sort. And the idea is that we're an EV as a service. So we're trying to help vehicles electrify, right? Whether that's all-in-one solution that can cover your electric vehicle, your charger, optimize your energy management and guarantees that reliability of everything. So essentially at the highest level, we're exchanging complexity and risk with EV adoption with convenience and reliability. That's the idea.
Love it. How are you thinking about, I guess, product development and maybe even just like team structure in this company versus other companies? What is your lens on that?
It's the same things in some ways. So I'll tell you I'll share the business model first, and I think maybe and then I'll show you why I've structured the team the way it is. So, right now, if you're a small business and you want to get a vehicle, right? But actually, I'm going to put this in a different way. Let me think about this in a different way. Okay. I think there's an old saying, right, in the trades. People don't buy a shovel because they want a shovel, right? They buy a shovel because they want a hole in the ground. And similarly, I think businesses don't buy vehicles, right? They buy the ability to reliably move people, move goods, and move like their workstations to a job site. And I think we know that this growing number of businesses recognizing that adopting electric vehicles is that new level of reliability. And then if you think about it, and as a service model where we take care of everything for you and make sure everything's up, and if the vehicle or the charger doesn't work, we'll fix it for you or we'll get you a rental in the meantime. That's another level of reliability, right? And so that state of reliability is what we're selling, right? That's the impact we're trying to make. So our business model is really around this idea of how do we how do we ensure that you're not buying a vehicle as a small business, you're buying the ability with the most reliability to move people, move goods, and move workstations, right, to a job site. And so our business model is really based on two things. It is, we're exchanging this idea of risk for reliability through execution of how we bundle services and sweat our assets. And I'll say that in the sense that, you know, if we want to provide all these things, we're trying to make sure we get you the right vehicle. So we need to really partner with all the dealers and all the, because sometimes it may be this electric vehicle from this manufacturer or this electrical van from this manufacturer. Like, how do we make sure we effectively get that to you in the right way possible? And then how do we make sure we partner with the right help other startups or whatnot to get you things like mobile repair or whatnot, and then the right, like, you know, insurance company, the right charger company, stuff like that. That whole orchestration of an entire ecosystem is super complex. And it starts with building a relationship and then understanding the workflow to even navigate through that to deliver something. And then how do you automate that? Right. And so I've got a chief customer officer who has a background in product management, has a background in evangelism of things, because that's what you need. That sort of dedication to know exactly what being customer centric actually means and how you build that experience around that. Super, super, super important, super difficult when you're trying to do that. The other thing about sweating the assets just mean that an electric vehicle should last longer than a normal vehicle. So what's that financing aspect? Do we believe that it will last, instead of traditional folks right now that don't, they go, oh, is a vehicle 3 or 4 years lifetime? And then maybe we'll factor in that it's worth 10% at the end of it. We're like, no. We think electric vehicles should run at least 7 years, 200,000 miles. But then how do we make sure we have a use for that? Like, what happens after the first initial 3-year term? And so I've got a really strong chief financial officer because of that. And then I've got someone focusing on sales, right, and acquisition. I don't have a chief technology officer. Not that I don't need one. It's just that for a few reasons. Right now, my most important thing is my business model of bundling. So I have my chief customer officer and sweating the asset, which is why I have chief financial officer. And then obviously acquiring customers, which is why I have a director of sales. You know, it's really interesting. As I start automating workflows as I need to, as I start automating external connections and whatnot, God, in today's world, do I need a chief technology officer, or can I look at no code, low code, right? Can I just figure that out and kind of save those resources to power everything else? I mean, I don't have that figured out just yet in my mind, but that's how I've prioritized it. I don't know if that makes sense. I don't know if that helps, but that's sharing a little bit about how I'm thinking of it.
First of all, I'll say I didn't pay you to say that, so appreciate you.
Oh, I don't even. What does that have to do with you? Oh, wait, that's right. No, honestly, but it's really the truth, right? Like, you got to understand what sort of company you're trying to build. But even then, even any sort of company, like, now,
100x further.
Yeah, I think so too.
And then if whatever you're building scales out of control, by that point, you should have enough money in the bank to hire some gun developers to rebuild it, and that's not going to be an issue. So
yeah, you're always going to weigh in what's better to get outsourced in, you know, and what you want to bring in house, but you figure that out as you kind of scale and go along with it for sure.
Exactly. I think one of the key things that I want to touch on that you just said, and it's very similar to the way Steve Jobs approaches things, is that you're like, everything is, and it probably shines through on your experience with Uber and even the early Japanese restaurant, is everything is centered around customer. Everything else is a moot point if you cannot deliver that exceptional experience to the customer. Nothing else matters. Is that a fair statement?
Oh, my friend, like, and oh God, it's really, I'll tell you how hard that is sometimes. Like, it's so hard to, I kind of said something like this before, but like, you know, there's that saying, what's Margaret Mead, right? Like, what people say, what people do, and what they say they do are 3 completely different things. And so just when you think you know what you're delivering and you're doing it the right way, you might not actually be, because they may be saying something, doing something else, and wanting something else. And like, that is so hard to figure out. And so that's okay. You know, no one is a mind reader, but you need to like deliberately prioritize that as the top thing you focus on, whatever your business is. And so that's it. You just keep going at it until you kind of figure it out.
Love that. I have the good fortune of working with some of your team members in your current company, and I think that they're awesome. What are some of the attributes that you look for people to bring on? Because I think hiring people in an early stage startup, the people you bring early on, really make or break. What are the key attributes that you look for in the early stages of a company and people you're going to bring on?
Oh, I mean, I'll tell you. So thank you. I mean, love the team as well. Made a lot of mistakes in hires in my previous, but which is I think what you learn, right? Oh man, like I'll be honest with you. I used to think it was no. It still is attitude, right? It's never really the hard skills. It's always more like the soft skills or the way they think. So I used to think it's attitude, right? But attitude, there's like a nuance to that. So and what I mean is what I used to think, right, was that all right, it's all about like how that whole thing about the glass is half full or half empty. So it used to be all right. All I'm looking for is folks that are like half full. If you don't look at the glass half full, you don't have that mindset. You're not gonna survive this. But what's super weird, what you learn about that is that like, and for my own self, right? It's hard to always stay positive when you're constantly being hit by roadblocks, and it's an avalanche of roadblocks when you have a startup, right? It just is like everything's coming at you, and I think people say when the glass is half full, it's like look at it like learning something, so you're never losing. I mean, but when you're in the thick of it, it sucks. I mean, it just sucks, and I think for the strongest of folks, you get beaten up. No one can stay that super positive all the time. And I made that mistake thinking folks that are positive, they're actually usually not effective. They usually get destroyed after a while. So I don't know if you've heard this saying before, there's a variation to this, and this is what I look for, right? It doesn't actually matter if the glass is half empty or half full. What matters is that the glass is always refillable. And I'm looking for folks that will just keep running and running to the fire. Like I know the team members I have now, like nothing is going to stop them from getting to where we need to get to. They will run and run into that wall until that wall moves out of its way to get through that. Like that's a very special quality. And it's the worst thing. The hardest thing is that you don't really know if someone's got that through rounds of interviews and whatnot. So it's trial and error. I think I'm just lucky through this journey now. I've got some amazing folks that I've worked with coming on this journey as well. And obviously, because I know they're proven, that's why we're off to a running start.
Love that. What advice would you have for non-technical founders who are in Australia who are just getting started and they don't have any revenue and they're non-technical? What would be your advice to those people?
I mean, it's all different situations. I think the first thing you got to make sure is that you've got a co-founder. In my experience, and I've spent enough time with like so many companies and so many startups, including my own few, and like everyone I think needs a co-founder. I think if you like Steve Jobs, Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, you name it, right? They've all had co-founders, right? You can't possibly be the best at everything, and so you've got to compromise somewhere, and all you're doing is slowing yourself down. And speed is everything, right? For a startup, like everything, you are always on the clock. It doesn't matter if you're bootstrapped or funded, you're on the clock, right? So how do you do this? I think at the founder level, you've got to measure yourself against the same pillars of like platform/product or people or process. And you got to find, and all of them are different. All of them require different superpower. You can only choose one. And then you either find really great co-founders or partners to help quickly. You should always ask for help. It's not a weakness. It's willingness. And you got to show that willingness to head towards your vision. Yeah, I mean, I think just got to make sure you can call yourself CEO, you can call yourself whatever. But if you're really a startup, it goes back to nothing's more important than getting your customers. Like nothing. Even before you even have a product, go find some customers. And as quick as you can to get something up there. And the great thing is that back in the day, it used to be clickable prototypes. Now you can literally build like, an alpha or whatever, a beta or like an actual working version 0.1 or whatever in no time. You just got to get in your initial customers, whatever that takes. You've got to prove that there's a willingness there. I think I learned time and time again that you make excuses going, I'm okay. We just need to keep building this and we'll be fine. But it's the best forcing function. The more customers you get, it will force you to get everything else in order. And when you have a team, what's amazing is customers tend to light up how the entire corporation rallies behind that customer. If you truly have people that care about that, and they will make anything happen for that customer. And then you bring in more customers, and then you want to be inundated so that you can't do that. And then you go bring more people. Like it is an amazing feeling to do that. But it doesn't matter, you're a founder, technical, non-technical, whatnot. Go get help, go get a team, and make sure you are just focused on getting a customer, even if you don't think you're ready.
Would you say being self-sufficient in the early days is super important?
What do you mean by self-sufficient?
Being able to build your own product and build, or at least have a co-founder or a team to be able to build product and sell product.
Oh, not real. I think you can get help, go get help. And help doesn't mean they're on the payroll. They could, what I mean, they don't have to be a headcount employee. Just find help. Like I've had folks, I've reached out to my network. In fact, that's usually how you get your first customers, right? Reach out to your network, who knows what and whatnot. Usually you never have to pay anything. You never have to whatever. Like everyone's got a network. If you think you don't have a network, you do have a network. Just because your LinkedIn has like 300 people, you still have a network. Go talk to your friends, go talk to your mom, go talk to your local milk bar. They don't do milk bars anymore, do they? Whatever, right? Like your local restaurant, like everyone's got a network. And so that should be your initial marketing folks, sales force, whatever. That's the sort of folks you need to go lean on. In fact, I don't know if I'd love to get your thoughts on that actually, Dave. But like, I truly believe that is the way you always move first go. It is in your network or the networks of networks that are accessible to you.
Yeah, I 100% agree, because they trust you. You've already passed the first layer. Is this person trustable? And so you've got that. And then if you do a good job for them, they launch you into the next layer of the network, which is their network.
Yeah.
And then
So it's not, I don't know if you call that, I don't think that's self-sufficient. I'm trying to say it's not.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter where you go get your help. Go get your help.
Yeah, for sure. I think the one thing that I've learned is like, either you have a co-founder who can build the product and you're 100% focused on sales. That's generally, I think, the best, most ideal solution. Or if you can't get a co-founder, you have to learn how to hack together the first version of the product. And a lot of the times it doesn't have to be that great. Like, I think a lot of people miss that it comes back to selling first before building, is that what people are they're looking for outcomes and they're looking for solutions to be sold, and how that's done doesn't have to always be a shiny app in the first instance. The end goal might be a shiny app, but it could be a spreadsheet with a Stripe link or whatever in a Squarespace site. And so I think that's just getting something out and being self-sufficient. Super important.
Yeah, it's the only way you're going to discover if you're onto something or not. People just want to solve problems. They just have a problem that needs solving, right? They're not looking for the flashiest or prettiest things. That stuff can come. But I think in almost any market, there is almost definitely early adopters. Whether that scales and you find a mass market, that's a whole different game, right? But you should be able to find early adopter in anything you do and get a quick read if it's actually going to scale.
Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Appreciate you.
Yeah, cheers, mate. I appreciate this, and hope to be invited again sometime.
You'll be, for sure.
Yeah, before you take off, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you're enjoying this podcast, I would love it if you could, 1, hit that subscribe button, 2, rate and review the podcast, and 3, share it with someone who you think could get a lot of value from. Thank you so much again for listening, and have a great day.